Hi everyone, welcome to the Communication and Conflict YouTube channel, promoting mindful communication growth through conflict. And today's recording is also going to be a podcast under the title CAOS, C-A-O-S, on Anchor FM, where I share quite a few of the other videos that I've done, but just in the audio version. So if you prefer to listen, please go to Anchor FM and look up CAOS, C-A-O-S, and you'll find recordings of these videos there. So today what I want to talk about are the ways in which in conflict we can cause ourselves to remain stuck and to make ourselves powerless in those situations. And often because we're powerless, we become very frustrated, very much a feeling of despair, very much that we're not getting anywhere, and often we'll say the cause of that is very much the other person or persons that we are in conflict with, but actually more often than not it's going to be us that's causing ourselves to remain stuck because we're focusing our energy and our time and the actions that we take towards something that we can't change rather than what we can change. And so I want to talk through today the ways in which that kind of shows up, so that if you recognize it in yourself in any difficult situations you're experiencing at the moment, you might be able to reflect on whether there are other things you can do differently that help you. So as a starting point, what people often will do when they're involved in unresolved conflicts, and as I've said before, these are based on things that I've observed in people that I provide mediation for and conflict coaching, but also things that I've observed in myself until I've been able to recognize that I'm doing them, and then in which case I've been able to kind of move forward from places that I might have felt quite frustrated by previously. But what tends to happen in a lot of difficult situations and unresolved conflicts is that a problem arises, and we might tend to criticize an individual or a situation and think that that's what's going to cause change. So, for example, say my neighbour's playing loud music, and I might go round to my neighbour and say, you're being really inconsiderate, or how rude of you to play your music. And that in itself doesn't help. I might go back next door and think, oh, okay, they're going to turn their music down now. But actually, the chances are they might even end up turning it up, because I've gone round and not talked about the music and just said simply, could you turn the music down? Because it's coming quite loud through the door, through my wall. I'm making it a personal thing about them. And it's interesting to me how often that is the initial kind of response that people will give to a difficult situation. So very commonly in workplace disputes, people will quite quickly move to a designation of somebody else as a bully, and they might call them a bully, or they might call them another name. They may say, oh, you're being stubborn, or you're being difficult, and they'll make the problem about the person rather than talk about what they're doing. And as you may have seen in one of the other videos I've done about principles of effective communication for conflict resolution, when we challenge or explore sometimes the person, not the behavior, not the thing that's happening, but we talk about the person and we kind of say something about them, it's unlikely to help things move forward, because what then happens is the person who hears us say this kind of critical comment about them, they react to that. They react to being called the name. They react to being called a bully. They react to being called unreasonable. They react to being called inconsiderate, or whatever the label is that we've given them. And so they're no longer interested in the thing that they're doing that we're actually concerned about. They react to being called that label. Now, some people may say, well, they've done a bad thing, so they should be called this label. And the point then is really, well, what are you wanting from the situation if you're wanting it to improve from your perspective. You might think the person's unreasonable, you might think they're a bully, you might think they're inconsiderate, or whatever other label you have for them. But by expressing your concern through that label, you're not actually spending your time describing what the issue is that you're concerned about. And you may say, well, I've done both. And the point is that even if you have done both, people are more likely to respond to the personal comment about them than they are to the thing that you're talking about. So it's better not to make any personal comments at all, even if you think them inside. That relates to another one of the principles of effective communication for conflict resolution, is that we treat each other with respect. Now, it's in my interest, in terms of resolving a situation, to treat someone with respect, even if I don't feel respect for them. So if my lack of respectful feeling towards them comes out in words that I use about them, again, they're going to react to that instead of being concerned with the thing that I'm actually affected by. So if I call my boss a bully because they don't take note of things that I say in meetings, or they are dismissive towards me, or they are acting towards me in a way that I find difficult, or I find oppressive or intimidating, but I call my boss a bully, they're going to react to being called a bully rather than understand the things that they're doing that I'm concerned about, because I haven't talked about that. Or again, even if I have talked about that, I've called them this name, so they're going to react more to the name than they are to the thing that is the problem. And what I kind of liken it to sometimes is, it's like driving along the road and you want to get to a particular destination, whatever that may be. You want to have a peaceful life in your home, or you want to progress in your career at work, or you want to have a nice time at work, or you want to be productive. And that's the kind of journey that you're on. And suddenly you come to a roadblock, and you kind of obviously have to stop. You can't keep progressing in the direction that you want to, or doing the thing that you want to do. And the question then is, do we kind of sit in our car and shout and scream at the roadblock and say how stupid it is to have a roadblock there, and how stupid whoever put it there is, and how unreasonable it is that this roadblock's there? Or do we just think, okay, there's a roadblock, how else can I get to my destination? So I'll back up. I don't need to spend any time shouting and screaming at the roadblock. Don't need to criticize whoever put it there. The roadblock's there. That's all there is to it. How can I back up, find a different route to get to my destination? So while doing that, I'm taking control of the things I can control, rather than shouting and screaming at the things that I can't control, which is that there's a roadblock there, and unless I've got my own digger or excavator or crane or something, I'm unlikely to be able to shift that roadblock. So therefore, there's no point me putting energy into that. My focus needs to be on getting to my destination. And as I say, getting to my destination might just be being able to enjoy my home, or being able to be productive in the workplace, or being able to progress my career in the workplace. If I come across a roadblock, and that roadblock might be a person, even if it's my boss, rather than get involved in a very angry, even if not direct relationship, but angry kind of thoughts and frustrations, and focus on them and say they're obstructing me, they're horrible to me, they're rude, they're inconsiderate, they're a bully, they're whatever phrase I might want to use. Instead of focusing on that, I can think, okay, that's how they happen to be. I don't like it, but what do I need? What can I focus on that I can do to support myself? And the point is, the second we do that, all the energy that we were previously putting into condemning the other person, trying to get them to change, condemning them out and saying how outrageous it is, and how terrible it is, what a travesty it is that someone could do such a thing, and all the energy that we put into that, which actually just makes us more and more het up inside, we can put into, okay, that's what's happening. I don't like it. I perhaps don't even like the person who's doing it. But actually, what do I want? I want to be able to work properly in my workplace. I want to progress in my career. I want to enjoy my home. So what is it I can do to maximize the possibilities of that I have control over, that I can put my energy into? Um, and so often this is not what people have done in unresolved conflicts. They've made it personal very quickly, and they've criticized the person. And in many ways, when you look at social media online, you can see how it's very much an easy tendency that we can have to simply just label and criticize people and call them names and say um, they're elitist, they're right wing, they're left wing, they're arrogant, they're only in it for themselves, they're ignorant, they've got no idea what it's like for the common people, or whatever denigrating phrase we're using. What does that actually do? What does that actually do to change anything? If we're affected by their views or their opinions or their actions, what I have to look at is, what can I do that helps me, given that they are doing what they're doing? So instead of trying to control them and demonize them, however much I think they deserve it, it's not helping me. And in a sense, the more I do that to them and demonize them, the more likely they're going to do things that actively obstruct me. Whereas if I don't, they're probably not even going to bother with me. They're just kind of perhaps ignore me because I'm not causing them a reason to be involved in a kind of a personal issue with them. But I can still, in the meantime, do what I need to do to help myself move forward in my situation. And the thing is, when we come to that place, it means that suddenly things that we perhaps in the past thought were dependent on them, and could only change if they change, we start to find that actually we have a lot more power than we think we have. Previously, we've told ourselves we're powerless, we're in despair, we're subject to the victimization of this other person, and in turn that makes us a victim when we don't have to be a victim. And we might get lots of other people agree with us that this person's terrible, but that still doesn't help us. Unless those people are going to help us with what we want to achieve, and they're only helping us with condemning the other person, that doesn't help us to move forward. It doesn't help us to create the change that we want for ourselves. So I just want to kind of highlight that kind of aspect of behavior in how we will often kind of respond to difficult situations. We immediately make it personal. We immediately start criticizing instead of thinking, okay, I don't like this. It's not working for me. It's stopping me from being able to do something that I want to do. What can I do that means I can still move forward in what I want to do, whether this person continues with what they're doing or not? And that's the only place where we have power. Because if we just criticize other people, not only are we kind of expecting them to change when we have no control over it, we may even be making it worse for ourselves, because suddenly we're causing ourselves to be involved in this personal interchange with the other person. You can see it with politicians. They're often kind of using characterizations of each other to try to belittle them, the other person or the other politician or the other party or the other viewpoint. So instead of actually it being a useful debate, what we'll often get is kind of almost silly sniping, and it doesn't educate us as the observers of it, and it doesn't actually improve debate. It doesn't improve the quality of the discussion. So it's a very common thing. It's not as if this is kind of something that only bad communicators do, because we all might do this kind of thing. But it's only when we become aware of this, when we become mindful of our communication, that we can grow through conflict, which, as you know, is the kind of theme of these videos, is that when we're aware that we're wasting our energy on things that we can't control, we can kind of draw it back and use it on things we can control, and that's where our personal power comes from. And what I would say is, if anybody watching this is saying, yeah, but you don't know my boss is like this, the chances are I've come across bosses and colleagues and other people who are very much like that. And in a sense, the risk is that you're wanting to ensure that you are staying in that victim status by saying that. There's always a choice that you can create for yourself if you don't devote your energy to demonizing the other person and focusing on them, but you just think, okay, this person's, whatever word you want to call them, you might in your head want to call them a rude name, but if you do it openly and use your energy on that, you're not using your energy to actually create the change that you always have the capacity to do for yourself, even if it doesn't feel like it to you at first. But giving yourself space to reflect on it, you will always be able to find a different way forward. And then you don't have to get involved in this personal fight with the other person. So if I kind of try to give you a couple of examples of that, uh, from my own experience, I had a situation recently where someone clearly and deliberately wasn't wanting to pay me for something that I had done for their organization, was clearly trying to almost like scare me off not expecting to be paid. It was a very large organization, and I guess the person concerned maybe felt that they were able to get away with that with some people by saying, just take us on legally, and we'll resist you, and causing so much obstruction to being paid that perhaps they thought they could easily get away with that kind of thing. But at first I was very upset by it. I was very concerned. It was quite a lot of money that I wanted to get for the work that I'd done. But then I realised in time that I was making it very personal about me and them. And so I thought, okay, this person is being that way. Maybe they've been that way with other people before. It would suggest that they have, because they did it so easily. They were kind of telling me untruths about whether they'd sent an invoice through for processing and things like that. And I thought, okay, so my focus is I want to get paid. So, and this person was in quite a senior position in the organisation, so it wasn't as if it was just a difficult admin person. It was a senior manager in a particularly large organisation. So I thought, okay, what do I need to do? Well, first of all, I need to be clear about what my rights are. I need to know the law under this situation, and there are quite a lot of protections for not being paid on time or at all. And it's a bit of a faff. It's a bit inconvenient, but at least I knew that I had that option available to me, so that was quite reassuring. So I'd learned that. I'd devote my energy to finding that kind of thing out. I'd asked for help from one or two other people who knew about these things. So my energy went into that because I'd stopped now making it personal about me and this other person. So I was already starting to feel, right, there's a way forward with this. But ideally I didn't want to have to go to court because it's a bit of a faff. It's quite a stressful. It's just a lot of work that I'd rather not have to do. So a friend suggested actually I went round this person and wrote to someone more senior in the organisation. So I wrote to the chairman and the chief executive of the organisation about my experience. And really, when you looked at the story of my experience, it was very clear that this person had acted inappropriately, and there would have been very little challenge to it if it had gone to court. But it was, as I say, it was just a lot of work when I'd have rather not. So I wrote to them instead, not criticising the person specifically, just outlining what they'd done, what they'd said, why that meant that I wasn't paid, whether they felt that that was an appropriate thing for their organisation to be like and seen to be like. So again, all of these things were constructive. They were all things that I could do for myself. It didn't matter who this person was, what I thought of them. And I did think some pretty, dim things of them. I did think they were a bit stupid. I did think they were being a bit of an arsehole, basically, and different things like that. But the point is, I didn't get involved in that. I didn't say those kinds of things in any of my interchanges. I just kept them to myself. I continued to focus on what I wanted, which was to be paid. And sure enough, within 10 days of writing this letter, I got paid. And it was straightforward. Whereas I'd actually spent quite a lot of time getting very upset with this person, thinking how terrible he was, thinking bad things about them. But I thought, okay, I'm supposed to be able to kind of deal with conflict. What am I not doing here that I would normally expect of myself? And I realised that because it was quite a lot of money, because I was kind of at first a bit unsure about how to take it forward, I thought, okay, so what am I doing? I'm focusing on personal. I'm challenging the person, not the behavior. I'm not thinking about them with respect. Um, what can I do differently? So I thought, okay, I've come to a roadblock. I need to back up. I need to find a different route. So I went round the person. I wrote to these other two people. In a sense, I don't know what they thought about what I said, but I kind of don't care. What mattered was my response was, I got my check, I got my payment, and that was it, sorted. But I could have become very, very frustrated and angry and very, outraged by, oh, how can somebody do this? How, abusive they are of their power that they think they've got just because they're a big organization. And I could have got into all of that. And I was very pleased to find out I didn't, because it kind of hopefully showed me that I practice what I preach. But it was a challenge, so it wasn't like I just clicked into there. At first I took it very personally, but in time I saw that my power was in taking action that I could change over things that I could change, and not trying to change something that I had no power over, which was this person's approach and attitude to people that they'd commissioned to do work for them. And it worked. So my energy was devoted to getting what I wanted rather than to demonizing this other person. Um, and I could give you other examples as well. There's. I think I'll put a link to an article that I wrote about this when I had a difficulty with a customer service person once. And I don't want to make out, oh, I always get it right, because I struggle as well. But what I notice is that sometimes when people really do feel stuck in their conflicts, it is because they're making it so much about the other person, and they very rarely, if ever, thought about, well, what do I want? What can I do to give me what I want, even if this other person carries on? And they've got so stuck in this kind of personal lock-in to the other person, who is doing things that they don't like, but they have no power to change them. And instead, they're not kind of using their energy to actually create a better way forward for themselves. So that's how we get stuck in conflict. That's how we make ourselves powerless, by focusing on the other person. We challenge the person, not the behavior, rather than challenge the behavior and not the person, so that we're not making it personal as a kind of a fight or a competition with them. We treat them with respect, even if we don't feel respect for them. We don't get locked into a competitive response to the conflict. We focus on a constructive and creative response to it from our side. It doesn't matter what they do. What matters is, are we doing what we need from our side? And as a consequence, it always means that change is possible, even if we wish we didn't have to, even if we think at first it's not. Change is always possible in a way that works for us. And when we've resolved the conflict from our side, it effectively resolves the conflict completely, because we're no longer locked in a conflict. So there's no one to have a conflict with, because we've achieved what we wanted to achieve. But ultimately, it also means we're likely to have a better kind of relationship with the other person anyway, because we don't feel so het up by them anymore, because we've seen that their actions don't affect us. So let me know what you think. I hope you found that interesting. If you have any questions about it, or you don't agree with it, or you do agree with it, please let me know in the comments section below. Please like the video if you found it useful and interesting to listen to or to watch. Please subscribe for future videos if you think that that would be of interest to you. And have a good day. Thanks very much for watching. Bye bye.